Hey everybody, hope you guys are all having a great day. Let me know if audio is all good, considering I haven't done a stream here in a few weeks. And we'll get started here. Got a lot to cover. I want to share a lot of thoughts about, where I think we are in a higher time frame cycle area, and just kind of give some short-term ideas of what we're looking at here. It's been a crazy last few weeks. I mean, absolutely crazy. I'm sure we all know if we've been here every day. The last few months in crypto probably have been the craziest times I've experienced since I started in the space in early 2017. Like the amount of curveballs and just things that we can't really expect, it's just been tremendous. So yeah, excited to dive in. First, we'll go over a few different charts here I created, kind of just giving a broader outlook of the cycle and, where are we? Are we at a point where we should be concerned time-wise? And then we'll look at a few Bitcoin charts and maybe touch on the Nasdaq 100. And then, of course, probably look at XRP and some order books. I might look at a few other coins, but, considering the market conditions, I think that it's useful to focus just on Bitcoin right now. And then obviously XRP, because a lot of you guys are probably interested in that. So yeah. As usual, feel free to throw in any questions about what I'm talking about here. We'll be glad to take some breaks and cover those, as usual. So yeah, the first thing here is this halving rainbow is a pretty funny chart, actually. There's a lot of people that have looked at the halvings as, not really meaningful in terms of Bitcoin's price action, because there's so many other liquidity events and just macro events, and even like the US election happens like basically like 6 months after each halving, the election happens. So people say, is it the election that kicks off the bull runs? Is it the halving? But so far, we haven't had any evidence that says that the halvings don't kick off a bull run. And that's because, of course, it changes the mechanics of Bitcoin, and the amount of Bitcoin that is mined gets cut in half, and therefore just decreases its inflation rate. And of course, that's why Bitcoin is valuable, and that's why it's went from, a few cents to $100,000, is because of its finite qualities. So this is a really interesting chart here, because back in 2022, this was actually one of my pieces of confluence that I used to kind of predict the bottom when we hit 16K back here. Essentially, I was looking, if we zoom in here, we can see how this is like 930 days since the last halving. A very similar thing happened down here. This is about 890, and look, about 940. So those are about the same dates or the same time since the halving. And even a similar thing here back in 2015. If we look, that's about 1,000 days, about 920. So this whole bottoming structure, essentially the last 3 cycle bottoms, they came in about the 900 to 950 day mark since the last halving, which is pretty bizarre. And on the flip side, the same thing kind of happened on the tops here. If we look, this was what, 530 days, and this was 540 days, or we could say here 527. So isn't it pretty spectacular how accurate this simple chart has been to kind of predict the bottoms and the tops on the Bitcoin cycles? At least to me, it's pretty funny how, a simple colored chart like this, because if you guys see the scale on the right, the color represents the days since the last halving, and it goes from 0 to almost 1,500. And it just hasn't failed us yet. So, of course, it can fail us, and I think that, of course, it's going to sometime either this year or next year, or, over the next few halvings, without a doubt. But as of right now, I wanted to start with this chart because, we're seeing a lot of people that are calling tops, calling the cycle to be over. And there's obviously evidence to do that. Over the last few months, I have not been under the impression that Bitcoin is not going higher. But at the same time, I have not ignored the signs that there could be a top that was placed back in, January. So I wanted to start with this chart to kind of say, okay, are we at a point where we should be concerned time-wise? And the answer is no. And the reason why is just because I said, both tops in the last few cycles, they came in about 540 days since the halving. And, we could see where we're at right now. We're only at about 350 days. So I posted this chart, I believe, back, I don't know, probably a few days ago. And I basically shared this and I said, if we follow the same pattern that we have the last two cycles, and once again, this is not me saying that I'm like this big cycle theory or your cycle guy that, believes that this is like the Bible for crypto. I'm very open to this being broken, and I'm even under the impression that the 4-year cycles are going to be broken, and they probably are now. But at the same time, we still have to look at this and say it hasn't failed yet. So let's take what we can from this and, just put it into our analysis. So the answer here is no, we're not at a time, at least time-wise, we're not at a point where we should be concerned, at least just from this piece of analysis, that a cycle top was put in. Using this analysis, a cycle top should be put in between September to November of this year. And once again, completely open to this breaking, but I want to share it here because it's a piece of data that has not failed us yet. And the people that want to, take the whim that this is going to fail us, that's completely fine. But we can't really say, technically speaking, until October, November, December of this year if the 4-year cycle theory is bust. And then the next chart here is a pretty cool chart here. I actually made this based on the last 3 cycles after the halving. So these are the price action. This is the price action on the last 2 cycles, my bad. And this green is us right now. And this kind of shows where are we based on time. And it's actually pretty interesting to see exactly where we are. And this dotted line here comes in at about that October-ish time period of this year. And we could see both cycles, just using the same type of concept that we used here. I'm just kind of plotting from here to here over each other so we can kind of overlay them. And we could see right here that both of the tops came in, within days of each other, of the 2018 cycle, 2016 to 2018, and then the 2020 to 2021. They basically came in within 10 days of each other, which is, once again, just a piece of data that is pretty bizarre and is pretty spectacular, at least in my eyes. Well, let me know what you guys think about this. This is something that when I ran this, I was really, really surprised actually to see that how perfect the length was of the last 2 cycles. So once again, this is just one piece of evidence that say time-wise, we don't have to be concerned time-wise. And once again, the whole idea, at least that I'll try to do on this stream, is to share the different concepts and ideas of, okay, where should we be concerned and where shouldn't we be, and what is kind of, weighing in each other's favor. And this type of analysis is not something that's screaming that a top was put in and we should be super, super concerned. And of course, once I dive into the charts, we're going to tie in technical areas to kind of this whole concept here. But you see where we are right here. Over the next 4 months, each cycle did go higher. And then this is another similar chart. This is looking at the price action actually after the halvings. This one was from the bottom, my bad. This was from the bottom of each cycle. So this is back when we put in the 15K low of this cycle, then the 3K low of the 2018 cycle. And this right here is looking at since the halving. But similar concept here. We can see where the pink is. This is us right here. Each cycle did go higher. We can see that this was the 2012 cycle, which is a shortened cycle, so we can't put too much weight onto it. And then the last 2 cycles here, they went higher over the next, see, this is about 550 days. So over the next 200 days, both cycles did go higher. So it's a pretty interesting thing. And yeah, let me see if you guys had anything. Could you look at XRP Ethereum? Yeah, we're going to take a look at XRP and some charts here in a second once I dive over to the trading view. Thanks for hopping in, Firedog. Where to check this chart? These are some custom charts that I did create myself. As of right now, I don't have any ability to share them. So I'm actually just viewing HTML files on my browser. But at some point here in the future, I may find a way to share some of these cool charts here. So that's for Bitcoin. I'm sure you guys get the gist of what I'm trying to say here. All of these kind of echo the same idea that based on time of the last few cycles, we're not at a point where we should believe like for sure that a top has been put in. And of course, like I said, I'm open to that changing, but we have to only use what we can, which is the past history. The next thing here I wanted to share was this cool other chart that I made of basically coloring the S&P 500 based on the RSI. So this is the 3-day RSI. We could see down here. I basically just colored any time we had the 3-day RSI drop below 30. And I don't use RSI too much, but on high time frame, it really is effective. I just wanted to bring this in here because I'm sure we all know that we're kind of by the whim of the stock market right now. If the stock market continues to tank, we're not going to see a bid in crypto. So we need to put weight on this. We need to keep our eyes on this, and that's why I wanted to bring this within the analysis. So yeah, based on what we saw over the last few days, we essentially hit a level on the S&P 500 that has historically marked at least some type of bottom coming in the near-term future. And this is over the last 26 years. And of course, times are different, but we could see here, this was the '08 crash, which I don't think is anything like what we're seeing right now. The '08 crash had a rounded top that spent like, what was this? This was November to, this was almost a year of going sideways and rounding off before the sell-off started. This is the complete opposite of what we're seeing right now. What we saw right here is a very sharp decline. We didn't have any rounding off. So it's a much different scenario, at least based on my approach of it. And then if we look here, that was the dot-com bubble. This one right here is the '08 crash. But even similar, you see how when these strong levels of RSI came in below 30, the bottom was pretty close to being in. Same concept here back in 2010. That was obviously the bottom right when we hit that 30. Same thing here in 2015. So we could see right here in 2015, bottom was put in there. This was the 2018, actually the tariff sell-off. So, we could kind of compare that to what we're seeing now. And then this was COVID. So, of course, COVID went super, super oversold here. And all of these obviously did move higher within a few months or a year. So that's where we're at right now. I'm not calling a bottom here on, the stock market just yet. But what I will say is because of the 90-day tariff pause that we saw, I am under the impression that the market is probably going to chop around for the next few weeks. I don't think we should breach the lows. Granted, we don't get anything, any crazy news, or we don't see any crazy pivot from Trump. I would like to believe, based on all the analysis I've seen and everything that I've done myself, that some type of low was put in there. And if we are going lower, it probably won't be for another month or so. And once again, that's granted we don't get some crazy bad news that says the tariffs are back on, or, something really, really breaks within the economy. So the next thing I want to bring up here is a chart that I posted yesterday. I just want to bring a little bit more emphasis on it. This is Bitcoin compared to the dollar. And I actually ran some scripts to kind of compare the last, 16 years of data, saying, when have we ever seen the dollar downtrending, in a drastic scale? And I think that what I did was it was a metric of a 3% drop within 90 days on the DXY, and to see how Bitcoin reacted within those periods. And the highlighted periods here are when we saw a 3% drop on the dollar. And every single time we saw that, Bitcoin rallied like crazy. I think that this right here was like 100%. This right here was like 250% throughout these periods of these large declines in the dollar. Same thing here. This was 2017. You could see right here, 2017. I think Bitcoin probably went from, I think that this was like 1,000 up to like 4,500. So it did like 400% in that period. And then the same concept here in 2022. This was right after the FTX crash. Bitcoin went from like 18,000, I think, to like 27,000. So it was almost like a 30-40% move. Right now, we're seeing the complete opposite of that. We're seeing Bitcoin down 20%, while the dollar is also down almost like 8% since January. That is a never seen before thing in the data that I ran. So it kind of tells us that this is a new macro regime, or something's off, or something's lagging. Because if we all know, Bitcoin is pegged to the US dollar, right? That's what everybody watches. Bitcoin USD. So what that means is when the dollar weakens, Bitcoin should automatically revalue higher, because it's obviously a finite thing and the dollar is not. So when we peg something to the dollar and the dollar goes down, Bitcoin should automatically just be going up. And of course, the data supports that that's always what we've seen. But this time, it's been different. So hopefully I could, towards the end of the stream, I'll share a little bit more reasons why we might be seeing this. But this is something I really wanted to, really point some fingers towards, because we've never seen this before. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen a lot of analysts share how, a decline in the dollar is always what's bullish for Bitcoin. And we could even see right here, if I zoom in a little bit more, you see how much more I could zoom in here. See, during the 2017 bull run, the blue here is the dollar. You see how the dollar downtrended the entire time while Bitcoin went from like, I think this was like $700 to 20K. See that? It was perfectly inverse to the dollar's decline. And then the same concept here during COVID. See how this big spike marked the bottom on Bitcoin? Then you see how the dollar declined for the next, basically 4 or 5 months or almost a year. And look what Bitcoin did. It went from 4K to 60K. So, of course, this has been a strong correlation. When the dollar's declining and it's in a downtrend, Bitcoin in the crypto market is moving higher, besides the last 3 months. If you guys have any theories on why that is, definitely throw them in the comments. I'd love to hear some other people's opinion on it, because honestly, no one knows. This is a very unprecedented time, and anyone who thinks they truly know, they're obviously just guessing, or they're doing speculation, which is fine. That's what this is all about. But it's definitely a super interesting thing to see here that we're having this kind of mechanic that's worked for almost 16 years, not worked the last few months. So I just wanted to bring some attention towards that, because I thought it was super interesting. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions about these, 3, 4, 5 charts here, let me know before we dive into the charts here. First thing I want to share here on the charts, though, is essentially the concept that I've been sharing over the last 2 months, which is that Bitcoin was reaching its historical bull market levels. And that means that in the past, anytime price accepted below these levels, we did see a bear market, and it never failed us, actually. If we look here, I don't have all the history here on this KuCoin chart, but we could see right when Bitcoin accepted below its yearly rolling VWAP right here, that right there started the bear market, of course. And this right here is skewed because we don't have all the volume data, but essentially the whole 2017 run was above this 12-month rolling VWAP. And then right when we lost it, the bear market started. Similar concept here. See how the entire 2021 run, we were essentially holding this green line, which is the yearly rolling VWAP. Right when we fully accepted below, which is right here, that's when a bear market started. So if we, bring that into where we're at now, and we say, okay, where are we at? We're right there. We're right at that level that any time prices lost this, Bitcoin did go into a bear market. Or better yet, Bitcoin went into a bear trend, and that's why I'm like saying to myself, there's a lot of people that think Bitcoin's going down to like, 30, 20K. I don't see that. Like under any circumstance besides a massive economic crash, I don't think Bitcoin will ever go below 40K in its life. And I have high confidence to say that, because if it does, I think that the whole chart breaks and the entire cycle and everything about it breaks. It becomes its own new thing. And we would really need to kind of, navigate that time without looking in the rear view at all. So I just want to bring attention to this, because in my opinion, this is why over the last few days and the last few weeks, I wasn't bearish down here. I caught this long perfectly. I caught this long here. I believe it was this one as well, pretty well. I have a bunch of bids that didn't get fully filled from 75 to 71. And, those are still down there in the event that we do get one more leg down. So I'm not completely opposed to that, but as of right now, I think things are looking good, that I don't think we should see one more leg down in the near-term future. But yeah, I mean, that's really what I can just emphasize is all of these levels. It's like the highest technical level. If you guys just drown out the news, if we forget about the tariffs, if we forget about all that, and I know for some people that could be dangerous, but the chart should tell you it all. And there's so many times where the charts just perfectly correlate to the news that comes out or whatnot. And when I look at this here, it's like this is the highest piece of confluence we could ever ask for on a Bitcoin chart. And I'll go over them here pretty quickly. The first thing is the previous structure high. So, of course, we spent, what was this, 6 months? I think we spent almost 6 months. About 236 days, almost 8 months consolidating around here, right? And that was our resistance level. And right when we broke that, we went parabolic. So that's the first thing. We have a high level of structure that was established last year. And I'm sure we all know, if you guys do your own charts, when you break a level, you usually do retest it. You usually do come down and retest it as support. That's kind of like a staircase concept I like to teach people, is think about charts like a staircase. If you're going up the stairs, you don't want to take a step back, right? Like if your goal is to get to the top of the staircase, why would you ever take a step back? You wouldn't. That would probably signal that you're probably not going to go to the top. And that's how I'm viewing this price action right here. And that's why I've been saying that this is the structure that Bitcoin needs to hold. Because if we go back and accept back below here, that is the first reverse progress that we made the entire cycle. And that's just based on just this line. So now we have three other things to add in here. We have the yearly rolling VWAP, which I just showed you guys. Anytime we broke that in the cycle, Bitcoin went much lower. We have the 50-week moving average, which is also a bull market band. It's this yellow line that kind of tracks it kind of tracks the yearly rolling VWAP, but it's a little bit different. But as of right now, they are perfectly in line. And then one other thing is the halving VWAP. So if you place a VWAP on when the halving occurred, Bitcoin never goes below that. Like after it makes a breakout in any other past cycle, it never goes below that. And that right there is also perfectly coincide with that, 70 to 77 level. And then one other piece of confluence that I didn't put up here is just this top trend right here. If we look right here, this is just another piece of a diagonal that kind of shares a similar concept, that we have a rejection there, rejection there, rejection there. And look, now we're trying to hold that as support. And then same concept with the uptrend since 25K. So does this make sense to you guys? What do you guys think about this? Because to me, it's like we have like 6 pieces of confluence right here that it's like if Bitcoin breaks this, it is not, I don't see a bullish 2025 for Bitcoin if we accept below this level. And that's been my stance for the past 2 months, and it continues to be my stance. There's people that have already called a bear market started, but you can't do that, in my opinion, based on technicals until we lose these levels right here. And that's where I've said that, if we do, in the event that we do get some crazy next leg down on the stock market, I am open to Bitcoin doing something like this and then shooting up very quickly and regaining that 75 level. That would be the max that I could see happen. We would consider that a deviation, and, that would be it. But if we do this and we're accepting below, that's it. In my opinion, Bitcoin is cooked for some time. And I'll also share the reasons why that is here. I'm sure you guys remember when I did a lot of the volume profile analysis back when we were above 90K, on when I was saying that, if we break the 90K region, we're probably going to fill the void back down to the low 70s. And that's obviously exactly what happened. We see if we draw the volume profile right there, I was essentially sharing how this is a liquidity void, low volume nodes. And when you re-enter low volume nodes of an inefficient move, you tend to fill them out. And that's, of course, exactly what happened. You see how we just filled out that entire low volume node? And then now, if we extend the volume profile to where we're at now, we're going to see watch these volume profiles right here. They're going to get a little bit more filled in. You see how much thicker those are now? So we just essentially filled out that inefficiency. And that's basically, what we should be thinking about, how if these levels break, we're back into this volume profile. We're back into this value area. So for anyone curious, when you exit a value area like we did here, and you come back down and retest it, that's bullish. But if you re-enter that value area, 90% of the time, you go to the other side of the value area. And that's about 60K, mid 50s, 60K. So that's why I'm saying Bitcoin accepting below all these levels here, 70, 71, 72 to 75, it won't be a good scenario. And if you're hoping to buy like a little bit below 70, there's a good chance you'll be able to buy a lot lower. Because if prices do accept down here, in my opinion, prices are going to come all the way back down to high 50s, low 60s. And then, at that point, we got to figure out what's next, because we would technically be in a bear market using all of the evidence that we've had in the past. So yeah, hope that makes sense to you guys. Let me see if there was any comments here. Why do people bother with X Ethereum charts anymore? Everything looks strong versus Ethereum. Yeah. Yeah, no, you are right, but you know, the cool thing about those charts is you have a lot more evidence. So if you know, on the USD chart, we don't have much evidence. You know, XRP only spent, you know, a few days above $2 in its lifetime up until, you know, the last few months. So when you compare them to Ethereum, when you compare them to other assets, you have a lot more levels of interest than you wouldn't see on the USD chart. So it's really only for confluence, if that makes sense. Um, ETFs, potentially ETFs. Yeah, I would agree. ETFs have changed the game without a doubt. I could listen to you all day. Oh, thank you, Axel. No, I do not work in finance. This is my finance right here. Firedog says, my only thoughts is how quickly Trump can turn things around with rate cuts, money printer on, tariffs, plus unknowns. He can pull his hat out. I would agree, Firedog. The only concern with that thesis is that he's acted like he doesn't care about the market right now. And of course, as much as he pressures the Fed, Jerome Powell, you know, Jerome's on his own little game here. He's, you know, it's like kind of figure out whose ego's bigger. Doesn't seem like Jerome's bending the knee to him yet. So it's going to be interesting. But Firedog is correct that all of my thesis of why we're not entering, you know, granted the tariffs, trade war doesn't cause an economic collapse, which nobody knows, guys. I don't care how smart you are, how long you've been around, how much you've studied economics. The smartest minds in this space right now, in the traditional finance space, they don't know what's going on. So to expect anyone else to know what's going on, it's a pretty slim chance. We're all just making predictions here. This is a completely unprecedented time. So to think you know how this trade war is going to end up, you're just guessing. You know, I hate to say that, but you are just guessing because we have no data to go off of. This is a completely different time. But what I wanted to share here is why Firedog is correct is because, you know, if we look at the Fed fund rate and the dollar specifically, even though the dollar hasn't reacted with Bitcoin just yet, that's what triggered the 2022 bear market. So this right here is when Bitcoin put in its 69K top. We went down to 15K. Look what was happening when that was happening. Rates spiked up like crazy. The dollar spiked up like crazy. Those are two economic metrics that are not good for risk assets like Bitcoin. But right now, we have the complete opposite scenario. We have rates starting to come down. We have the dollar absolutely tanking. So the two things that sent us in a bear market in 2022 are actually in our favor this time. So it's just something that I'm still keeping in mind. Thoughts on Ethereum R2R at these levels? Put 20% of my cash in spot today. I mean, it's not a bad play, Eric. I mean, if you look at the Ethereum chart, which we can cover it. I mean, it's absolutely decimated. You know, it's absolutely decimated. So like to think Ethereum's gonna break its bear market low at 1,000 without at least a 20 to 50% correction, I think it's a very slim chance. I think it's a very, very slim chance. So, so yeah, I mean, Ethereum's obviously really cheap. I'm not like super bullish on it still because it just seems like it's got a lot of ways to go to fix a lot of itself. Its high time frame chart is broken. It's completely broken. So I'm really still not touching it because I just find better opportunities as for spot holdings, but I will be looking for trades on it. Absolutely. I mean, if Bitcoin could regain what I'm about to show you here on some shorter term things, absolutely. I think Ethereum can save itself a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, look at Ethereum dominance. I mean, you know, look at this chart. I posted this like a month ago, and I asked people if they could figure out what it was. Nobody guessed it, but I basically said that this is a parabolic advance. It's like this right here is like a chart going parabolic. You know, to try to short it there, try to short it there. You see, everyone just keeps getting, you know, they keep getting taken out. But the cool thing here is we are reaching that level of support that I've been watching for a while. So you would expect some type of reaction to come in here, right? But on this type of move, you know, you have to wait until structure really reverses before you can say like, okay. And the reason why is you guys all know, well, not all of you, but I'm sure a lot of you guys remember how I made that video about curve sell-offs and how they're deadly. Well, here's your perfect example. See what happens when we have a curve sell-off that basically is created over a 1.5 year time period. That's what happens. So yeah, he legally doesn't have control of tariffs, but Congress has capitulated it to him. Interesting. Thinking of shorting Bitcoin 83 range for an exit around 74, stop margin at 85, 86. I'm not. That doesn't sound like the best move to me, Firedog. Unless we get a strong rejection here, which I'm going to share some shorter term charts here in a second. But like I said, without new news, I'm going to be very concerned, and I'm going to have a hard time seeing Bitcoin drop right back to 75K within the next few days. If that happens, like below 75, like we got some bigger problems on our hands, in my opinion. So, do you have a long-term price target for XRP? No, I do not. Unfortunately, I don't give XRP price targets for this exact reason, because when we were at 350, when we were at $3, everyone was calling for 5 to 10. Everyone was calling for giving their price targets, and that's when everyone was bullish. And I refrain from that. I'm just going to play the chart as it is. I'm going to use the order books to try to figure out where too much supply is entering that's going to cap demand, and that's the approach I will take. Granted, we get another leg up on XRP. Did you discuss XCN? No, I really don't look at small coins, guys. I apologize, but me, at least, especially in this period, like, I don't know, just in this period right now, I think you should only be watching the top coins. Like, unless you're doing some really shorter term scalps and you want to trade these tiny coins, feel free to do that. But me personally, I trade Bitcoin, I trade XRP, I trade Sol, sometimes Doge, sometimes Link, XLM, but I'm only trading the large caps just because they're the highest liquidity, and I've spent the most time looking at Bitcoin and XRP throughout my career. So yeah, okay. Some thoughts on Bitcoin dominance. We could cover that here. How do you feel about Sol? Sol, I think that Sol's also in a very interesting point, personally. Structure is broken on Sol's high time frame chart. But at the same time, what I think's happening right here is we're trying to deviate below all of these lows. So these were untapped lows back in the summer. We deviated below those. We can regain these. I think Sol at least is going to go back to 150 range. So yeah, that's my short-term thoughts on Sol. I don't think Sol's completely cooked or anything like that. But all right, let's move on to the next thing I wanted to share here. So the next thing I wanted to share here was this cool chart that I made. This is the Bitcoin VIX chart, and let's see, is this it right here? Yeah, this is it right here. So funny enough, even though I wasn't this mega bear, I was far from a mega bear in December, just because I thought that we had a chance to go higher in Q1. And of course, some things did, like XRP, but a lot of coins didn't. I shared this post back in, this was right in December. And I said Bitcoin hit the same top trend that it did over the last 3 cycles. Is this time different? It was basically right when we were right there. And we could see this just perfect top trend when you denominate Bitcoin in the VIX. And 2017 top, perfect. 2021 top, perfect. 2021 fake top, perfect. And then 108K, also perfect. But at the same time, when I shared the update on this chart, I said, whoa, we're actually on this bottom trend now. So, if we look at the top trend and how it reacted, and we could even invert this to kind of give a different view, look at how perfect this bottom trend worked 4 times. Is this top trend, even though it's inverted, is this top trend going to work 4 times? Well, we all know high time frame trend lines are unmatched, absolutely unmatched. I mean, you guys see me doing order flow and order book analysis, you doing some more detailed analysis, but I will say the simplest things, drawing lines on the chart over multiple years, they still don't fail. So when I look at a chart like this, I'm like, okay, this is adding to my whole idea here, guys, that Bitcoin does not have much more to go down before structure really breaks. And I hope that this chart kind of paints that picture. We see that this kicked off the 2017 bull run. This kicked off the 2021 bull run. This kicked off this was 52K when we hit this. This right here was 108, so this kicked off a 100% bull run. What's happening right here? Is this going to be the next leg? And really, if that continues to hold, I believe so. I believe that the bear market pullback should be soon over, if not another 5% lower. Because if not, it's no longer a bull market pullback. It's a bear market. Just all the evidence we have says Bitcoin's trend is broken, and I think that we all have to accept on that one. So yeah, what Bitcoin USD VIX? Didn't know that was a possible. Yeah. So if you just type in Bitcoin crypto colon Bitcoin USD / TVC colon VIX, you could get this exact chart up there. So yeah, I wanted to share this. I thought this was pretty cool, guys. Like I thought that this was I love charts that have 10 years of data that give you perfect trend lines like this. It's pretty immaculate if you know. So yeah, then the next thing here was the Bitcoin versus the Mag 7. It's a very interesting chart here. Was this the Mag 7? Oh no, this is the Mag 7 chart. So if we see here the Bitcoin Mag 7 chart, pretty interesting chart here as well. This is looking at looking at Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla. That's what this is basically comparing it to. So it's showing, is Bitcoin outperforming these top tech stocks, or are the stocks outperforming Bitcoin? And over the last few days, Bitcoin actually made a new high against these, which is pretty interesting. And it shows that Bitcoin's immune system over the last 10 years, it's gotten really strong. So anyone who laughs about the outperformance or the strength of Bitcoin, there's nothing to laugh about. It's actually true. And if we just look at this chart like right here, and if we share, just like a perfect resistance level, let me actually use a box here. It's pretty interesting here. It kind of shows us like a little bit more. Bitcoin will be looking for this top trend right here. Bitcoin will be looking for this top trend right here. So I'll continue to monitor this chart. I just wanted to throw it in here because it's super cool. One other chart, and then we'll move on here. I know it's already been 40 minutes, and I only have half of what I wanted to cover. But if we take a look, what was the other chart? Okay, Bitcoin oil. This was a pretty interesting chart right here. So people ask me, like, why do you denominate things in oil? Well, I said because everyone looks at the USD chart. So if you denominate it against a pretty hard asset like oil, it's going to show you something that the USD chart's probably not going to show you. So back last year when everyone thought we were in this doomsday event when Bitcoin was going to go down to like 40, 30K and the low came in at 49K, this is the chart I was watching. I'm like, no. I'm like, this is still a super bullish structure. This is an ascending triangle, bullish structure, breakout, retest, bam. Just an absolute, just incredible move up. And then look at what's happening right now. So I ask myself, like, is the USD chart telling us something? Is the USD chart failing to tell us something that's actually happening under the surface? If we look here, this is a perfect bull flag here. And if you look at this chart, guys, is this a bearish chart to you? Not to me. This is a pretty strong chart to me. So, I'm just taking this all into account here. Like I'm just taking it all into account and saying to myself, like, okay, we got a trade war going on. Bitcoin should not be affected by a trade war. It's like Bitcoin's in this weird place right now, guys. It's in this place where it's looking at the stocks and it's like, should I be like them? And it's looking at gold and it's like, should I be like him or her? And it's trying to like take its first like baby steps into figuring out what kind of asset it is. And it's such a cool time right now, guys. We're in a historic time right here where Bitcoin may be taking its first baby steps as an actual hedge against global uncertainty. And I know for some people, they're like, how can that be? Blah, 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 this and that. Well, why would Bitcoin be attached to the stock market? Bitcoin isn't a company. Bitcoin doesn't have earnings. Bitcoin doesn't have employees. Why would Bitcoin trade like the stock market? Why would Bitcoin trade like the stock market? It doesn't make any sense, guys. It's all because of algorithms. And those algorithms are bound to break it at some point, at least in my opinion. So, sorry, I'm going on a little bit too much of a ramble here, but the last thing I'll say about this is this shared a bullish scenario back last year when the USD chart really wasn't showing you the most bullish scenario. Right now, same exact thing is happening. This is showing a bullish scenario when the USD chart is not showing a bullish scenario. Right? I should say it doesn't look as good. You know, it looks way worse than this chart right here. So just giving you guys a little view into all the things I consider right now. So all right, let me take a look at these comments here. Then we'll cover Bitcoin short-term view. We'll look at the order books, and then we'll look at XRP. So yeah, so quite accurate chart. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. How come XRP's price is being suppressed? XRP's price is not being suppressed. I'm sorry to tell you, it's just moving like a market moves, and it's caught in the wind of a global market sell-off. And I like the conspiracies. I've been down that road too, but I watch these order books all the time. I watch the order flow. Bitcoin, I mean, XRP is unfortunately, if it's not to burst your bubble, but it is not being suppressed. It's just moving how a regular chart is. If there was more demand than supply, XRP would be going higher. As of right now, there's been more supply than demand, and that's why the chart looks the way it does. Does it seem unlikely for XRP to hit 150? It's the same likeliness that stocks put in one more new low and Bitcoin puts in one more new low to 70 to 71 to 72. In that case, we would see 150 to 170. I still have bids down there in that event that it happens when I'm sleeping or something, but I still have those bids down there. As of right now, I don't see any reason why we should do that in the near-term future, though. Why are you all XRP? These are very unique charts never seen before. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's how I approach the analysis, guys. I'm trying to look at things that people don't, because that's how you develop an edge in the space. How's the XRP oil chart looking? It's looking good. We'll cover it here in a second. Why are you all XRP obsessed? XRP's got a strong community. Not financial advice Q at the end, but let's say once Bitcoin confirms break of structure after breaking 89K plus higher low on medium time frame, what are you monitoring for next leg up spot swing? Nothing moon boy, maybe safe 1 to 2x. Or from XRP, want to distribute risk. I guess, maybe you're asking for my short-term thoughts, and I'm about to share those here now, about like the levels that we need to be watching for. Okay, are we back? Or, is this just a dead cat bounce? Are we back or not? Mooncake says she just needs Bitcoin to tap 90K. Well, that might be happening here shortly. All right, let's look at short-term Bitcoin here, and then we will move on to we will move on to Bitcoin, or sorry, to XRP. So let's pull up the last two VWAPs here. Let's throw up a volume profile on here. I'm going to share my short-term thoughts on Bitcoin here. So I'm sure you guys saw the last few days when we got that big shift with the tariffs being delayed. I shared this chart right away, and I said we're not out of the clear. Don't get too excited. We're not out of the clear, and that was because we had this downtrend. Perfect downtrend, guys. Once again, these trend lines, like they're funny, they're easy, but they work. Like they work, especially when you have other confluence with them. And then we have the monthly rolling VWAP, which prices failed to accept above since 100K. So it's going to be an important level to regain. And look, we're trying to regain it right now. And then on top of that, we have the point of control of this entire move. This entire move right here. Well, actually, the point of control is right there, but here, this is off by like a little millimeter, so we can call this another point of control. That's the highest volume area. That tells us that the most transactions over the last 2 months occurred within this range. So what does that mean? That means that that's an important level that Bitcoin needs to get above. So all of my confluence is stationed here pretty perfectly. And if we look at some TPO charts here, it kind of shares the exact same idea. So we could see I think this is a 3-day, I got a 3-day composite on here. Oh no, this is a 1-month composite, my bad. So this is looking at April, and this is March. You see the point of control is where we're at right now, 83, and the point of control of last month is at 84. It just confirms the same concept that I'm saying, that if Bitcoin flips this area right here, 83 to 84, which is perfectly in line with everything right here, I think that we're going to send it right to 90K, and Mooncake will be able to take profit on our longs. I'm pretty sure that that's what I'm looking at here, and it just makes sense. So if Bitcoin can get above all of these levels, 83, 84, and we're accepting above, 90K test, I think, is happening here pretty soon. So that's my short-term thoughts. We're right on the edge of breaking this downtrend. That'll be a great sign. And then 90K will be the true test. So hopefully TWT, this is answering your question here. If Bitcoin regains the quarterly VWAP, which was one of the reasons why I turned bearish right here at the last few days, even though I wasn't bearish right up here at the top, right here I said we got something wrong. You know, the order books are screaming something's not right here. And I said, historically speaking, when we lose the quarterly VWAP, it's not a good scenario. And of course, a few days later, we did have that breakdown. So we're going to use it on the same concept here. If Bitcoin can regain this 90K region, this quarterly VWAP, what we're doing also is we're regaining the entire range that we've been in since December. That would be, I think, that would be the scenario where it's like, okay, there's a high chance that we're actually back. The bull run is back on. And that's really the simplest way I could put it. I don't want to overcomplicate things here, guys. And that's really the simplest way I could put it. So here's our first step. First step, okay, downtrend's broken. You know, we could start trading around here. Above here, okay, bull might be back on. We could look for, you know, potentially 100K. So does that make sense to you guys? Let me know. If you guys are confused, I'll elaborate. But that's how I'm approaching this right now. It's a super simple thing. Just flipping how I approach the downtrend break. And that's how I plan to approach the next few days here and the next few weeks. So yeah, the last thing here on Bitcoin would be the order books. So if we pop over here to the order books here on Bitcoin don't look too bad. They don't look too bad at all. So we see here on Binance, let's go on Binance first. Make this a little bit steeper here. So we could see, you know, we have a massive amount of support down here. This is why I was bullish down here, was not getting bearish down here. I had bids down here. I was happy to get them filled. And I got my bid filled on here, took profit up here. This one I got front ran by a little bit because I expected us maybe to start dipping down there. But at the same time, these bids stay here. So we can see we got about 2.4 thousand bids down to about 70K, or about 2,000 bids down to 70K. And then on the upside here, we got about 1.3. So the order book is balanced in our favor for the bulls. See, this is an imbalanced order book for the bears. This is a balanced order book for the bulls. And we have some walls here about 85, and then we're looking at, you know, basically 90K. So the order books here aren't too bad. Nothing too alarming on Coinbase. And then on Binance. And then on Coinbase, you know, this is actually a really bullish order book here on Coinbase. Like extremely bullish order book. We could see we actually had some limit chasing up here. At about 80 Bitcoin trying to chase price and hold it down there yesterday when everyone was freaking out. Then same concept. We have about 600 Bitcoin down to 70K, which is the largest amount that we've seen in, you know, a long time. Since September of last year, we could see all of these bids down here. How much was this? Let's see if this can load here. Got about 700 Bitcoin down here, which for Coinbase, that's a large amount. And then you see how the order book's just empty up to 90K. How much we have up here? About 100 Bitcoin, or actually 50 because it came back down. About 50 Bitcoin. So Coinbase says we can run it right to 90K. But once again, we need to break those levels that are important. So all right, that's really all I have for Bitcoin, guys. I think it's a pretty clear approach. And then let's see what the next thing here is. Next thing I just wanted to cover quickly, unless you guys have more questions, is the Nasdaq 100. So I wanted to share my reasoning as to why this is a, you know, pretty interesting bounce area. And of course, you know, prices have reacted pretty well off this. Two simple reasons. Got two VWAPs from our 2022 bear market low. So why I love VWAPs. Look, what we basically hit in between both of them perfectly. And then we have the 2021 high. You know, it's like perfect SR flip. You know, very simple, perfect support resistance flip. Same thing that we're seeing here on Bitcoin. On the high time frame, if I go back to our KuCoin chart here, you know, same concept. We're trying to retest previous resistance as support. Same thing that happened here on the Nasdaq. So once again, nothing that's, you know, structure isn't like fully broken on a super high time frame. And yeah, this is why I'm under the impression that, you know, I don't, unless some crazy news comes out with Trump, I think we're probably going to see something like this. Like literally, like that's what I think that the next few months can look like. So we could just hope that Bitcoin and crypto catches a bit outside of that, which I think it's possible. I think it's without a doubt possible, especially if we get Fed rates and Fed cuts, and if the Fed starts, being a little bit more juicy on potentially some liquidity injections, we could see crypto run while stocks range. And the reason why is because these stocks in this index, they're going to be affected by these tariffs so they don't get pulled. Bitcoin isn't. Bitcoin's not. So that's really all I had about the NAS 100. So yeah, then the next thing here is XRP. So XRP here is a super simple chart for me. It really is a super simple chart. So what we just saw last night was actually super, super, super good to see, because what it was, we had this level here, 190 to $2, right? One support touch, two support touches, three support touches, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's obviously a support, right? Each time we saw that, we've done 40%. Right here we did 20%. Right here we did about 70%. Right here we can call it, we did 50%. Right here again, we did 50%. And then 30% and so on. So you could see what just happened here. Bulls just reclaim that support. This is a good sign as we speak. If we roll back over like this and back under here, not a good sign. We're back in the range of $1.50 to $2. But as of right now, this is a good sign. Granted, the market keeps pushing higher all around. This is a good sign. That this shows that the XRP bulls didn't go to sleep. They're still here. They're still strong, and they want to recover this thing. So what that means is we need to see the election VWAP get regained, because this orange line here is election VWAP. That's our first stage. Second stage is 220. I think if this occurs, we're going to be looking at 220. At that point, we're back in our range. That is a bullish thing. That is a bullish thing. I think that would be super, super positive. And then once again, just have to play the levels then. 220, we go to 250. And then above 250, at that point, I think we're ready for new highs. And of course, that's some time away. Don't want to get too excited yet, but that's really how I'll be playing this chart. And as of right now, it does look bullish. I could eat my words in 2 days if we roll back over, but reclaiming a support that we held for 3 months after a breakdown and a deviation, that is usually, based on all my history and everything I've seen, prices do move higher at least 60% of the time after that. 60 to 70% of the time. So that's how I'm playing XRP right now. And then same concept here with just a simple trend line. We're trying to break that downtrend as we speak. So we see perfect downtrend, breaking this 220, 220, 250. That's really all I have for XRP. The last thing here is, I think I had it on this chart. Was it this chart? No, it might have been the Binance chart. Let's see. Binance chart. Yeah, perfect. Binance chart. So same concept is happening here that happened with Bitcoin. So if we go back and say how Bitcoin was filling out that liquidity void, that's what XRP has been doing. That's what XRP tried to do right there. So this is a positive thing. Above 150, everything's all good. And in the event that we do fail this regain that we perfectly have right now, I didn't even move this 196 line. It's been here for probably a few weeks. See how perfect that retest is? Losing that again puts us back in this range of $1.50 to $2, and we're still fine at that point, but we'd probably just base out more and see something like this. So yeah, that's really, if you guys have any other questions about XRP, feel free to let me know. But as of right now, XRP is still one of the strongest coins in this entire market. So we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to ignore it. And then the XRP US oil chart. This is a really cool one. So, if XRP does, that was the low, and we just start chucking up like here, man, this chart will be a very big lesson for everybody, because I have a thread going on Twitter right now. I probably updated this chart like 20 times within that thread, and I basically said the range is still intact. You know, the range is still intact. And I basically said I'm going to be looking at the US oil chart because it gives us a cleaner range than the USD chart. So as of right now, that just confirmed a strong deviation, and regaining that green line, which is the midpoint, is going to be a super bullish scenario. It's going to be a super, super bullish scenario. So yeah, this chart is just incredible, especially if that was the low. It just proves to you that, you know, pairing assets with other things other than USD can be very beneficial. It can be very, very beneficial, guys. So yeah, that's my approach on XRP here. You know, it's still looking good. Anything above 150 is still good. That's equivalent to Bitcoin 70K. Bitcoin breaks and accepts below all of those high time frame levels. We got some problems in our hands. That's probably going to coincide with XRP breaking below 150, and at that point, yes, bear market. We are in a bear trend. That would be our levels where we're in a bear trend. But right now, it's still a bull trend for Bitcoin and XRP. See if you guys had anything here. I will watch it tomorrow. Just wanted to say, keep up the good job, my man. Thank you. Thanks for hopping in, guys. Appreciate it. And if you guys aren't subscribed, definitely subscribe. Looks like we only got 26 likes in here, but a few hundred people have dropped in. So just hit that like button. Hopefully I will continue on my weekly stream here. You know, it's been a crazy last few weeks. I was traveling for 1 week, and then it's just been crazy stuff. So glad to be back on the weekly streams here. I hope you guys appreciate them, because I do put some time into preparing for having a good thesis and, you know, a good structure of some things to share with you guys. F is dead. Yeah. Thoughts on XRP Ethereum? Yeah. We'll take a look here next. Can you talk more about the XRP Ethereum chart and explain how it's about to outperform? Absolutely. US oil charts look better than USD. They do. That's why they're awesome. That's why they are awesome. I get that everyone shits on ETH, but I remember when everyone did the same for XRP under 50. Yeah. Yep, without a doubt. That is true. You know, how the times have turned. How the times have turned. What do you think about Farcoin's PA? I just think that people are bored, and when you get, you know, a few hundred people that have some cash behind a trade start piling in, it creates a momentum effect. So that's what happens there. Appreciate the free analysis you provide. Thank you. Yeah, I do put a lot of time into this free analysis here. When I don't have to, I made a post how I question why I'm even here, and I'm here because I do enjoy it a lot, and I enjoy the messages I get and all the hundreds of people I've taught over the years and help them profit, or, you know, secure gains at least, even though I'm not a financial advisor. You are great. Thank you. Thank you. Gold looking toppy. Yeah, I mean, let's not try to call tops on gold until, you know, we see some structure break, because there's a lot of uncertainty right now in this global economy, and gold is obviously gold, you know. So yeah, guys, let's see, what else did I have here? Okay, XRP Ethereum, and then XRP order books, and then that's it. It's been about an hour and 5 minutes. Hope you guys enjoyed it so far. Appreciate the likes coming in. Just helps me grow this channel. It's only been a few months. I started this at the new year. And I plan to start creating a lot more content here, because, you know, it's super beneficial. I think video content's awesome. It's cool to be interactive, you guys know. So yeah, let's look at XRP Ethereum here. Actually, I think it's on that other chart. It's going to be a little bit of a problem. Here, this is what we'll do. Let's go on X, and let's see here. See if I can pull up this chart here, because it will be too hard for me to recreate this chart live. I don't know where I used it. But yeah, so this is where we'll start. So let's go back to the chart here. Go back to XRP Ethereum. Where we got? Is that XRP Ethereum? Where's she at here? Right here. Okay. So this chart right here obviously has been mega bullish. I mean, just incredibly bullish here. And, you know, it's held the uptrend very, very, very strongly compared to a lot of the different denominations. And what I basically said is these two lines right here are these two lines right here. So let me see if I could just drag this off and then see if I could bring it up on here. There we go. So these two lines right here. All right, 1 second. So these two lines right here are the same as these two lines, okay? And I went back in history and said, what's happened when we broke those two lines? So this was the first time, 2018, or sorry, this was the last time it happened, was 2018. XRP went up 167% in 5 days. Right when we broke those two lines. You see how we broke above and then retested? Kind of like what we're trying to do right here. Broke above, maybe we get this retest. XRP went crazy. Same concept right here. Fake out, full regain. XRP did 250%. Crazy, went parabolic. And then same concept right here. You see how it's resistance, acting as resistance. We go back to the chart right here, acting as resistance. Right when we broke out, bam, 280%. So historically speaking, we've only ever seen XRP go parabolic when that level was broke. You know, anytime that level has been broke, XRP goes parabolic. So, you know, it's an interesting thing because we're not like the market's not like in the super bullish stance just yet. You know, it's of course bullish, but I mean it's bullish on low time frames in my opinion, as we've seen the last few days. But we're not like in this period where it's like, okay, you know, things are popping off like crazy. So that's why I'm confused about this chart. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. But the only thing we have to go off of is past history. And any time that we broke this past history, it went crazy. Here's a view of them. Here was the first time, went crazy. Here was the second time, went crazy. Here was the third time, went crazy. So I don't know, guys. I don't know how this is going to play out perfectly, but like, man, you know, we're at that point where it's like, you know, we're basically above it. So at any time here, I mean, we're at 0.0013. So I'm just gonna keep an eyes on this. Maybe this resistance is now a dud, but usually that doesn't happen. I'd be really surprised. So if we keep seeing this happen, it means three things. Ethereum tanks and XRP stay steady. Ethereum and XRP both pump. XRP pumps way more. XRP pumps while Ethereum does nothing. Those are the three scenarios. So you guys can pick your poison there. I don't have any more evidence or data to tell me which way that's going to be, but those are the scenarios that we have. So I think that's all I have there for XRP Ethereum. I mean, it's at a point where historically speaking, I mean, the charts only ever went crazy after we broke that level. And this is all the evidence right here. You guys really like this chart. Got 1,000 likes. It was back in March. It was a pretty funny one. So yeah, that's really all I got there for XRP Ethereum. So better holding XRP than Ethereum based on the past. I mean, based on the last 5 months, absolutely. You know, could that change? Sure. Do I see it changing in the near term future? No. Like in my opinion, okay, this is the last thing we'll look on the charts, and then we'll finish off with the XRP order books. Is, you know, this chart here on Ethereum. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, what would it be? I think it's the index. I got so many charts here. It might be this. That's this one right here. So I'm sure you guys remember. Some of you guys have been following me now for a while, and I appreciate you guys. Back in August of last year, posted this trend line right here. And I said, what, you know, Ethereum's about to break this trend line. This trend line is 3,000 days long. People laughed. People said, oh, the blah, blah, blah. And, you know, when we broke it, Ethereum dropped 30%. And like, you guys remember that? That was like crazy. 27% like a day, right? And this whole time when Bitcoin went crazy, all we did was retest it as resistance. That's all we did. All we did was retest that 3,000 day uptrend as resistance. So we could see right there, it was a retest as resistance, right? And look what happened after. I mean, Ethereum's down 66%. The second biggest asset is down 66%, while Bitcoin's only down 30. You know, that is something was structurally broken with this chart. And then, you know, probably my last stream actually is where, and I never posted the clip, but you guys probably remember where I was like, Ethereum's going to hold this level or it's going to 1500. I said that like very confidently. I'll have to clip it and share it because it was one of those high confidence times where I'm like, we're holding this level or it's going to 1500. And look exactly where that candle closed. Yeah, we had a deviation below, but look, 15, 16. We hit it perfectly. So what that means is, yes, we could see some bounces, but at the same time, what it means, guys, is that the Ethereum chart is broken. This chart is broken. Like, this is a broken chart. Nobody can disagree with me. Maybe they can, but they won't have more evidence than me that this chart is broken. And for this chart to unbreak itself, we got a lot of ways to go. A lot of ways to go. The first thing to do is to regain 2200. You know, that's the first thing to do is to regain 2200. You regain 2200, okay, we're kind of back in business. The second thing would be to regain this uptrend. The fourth thing would be to regain this, and at that point, Ethereum is going to have to like, I mean, actually no. If we extend this trend line here, guys, Ethereum is not going to break this uptrend. It's going to be under this for its entire life now, in my opinion. Unless Ethereum just, for whatever reason, shoots right to 10K over the next, 3 months. But this is what I mean. Say Ethereum does go higher in 2026, or at the end of this year, it'll have to break 10K to regain this uptrend. So the high time frame structure is broken on Ethereum. So that doesn't mean I don't think it's going to bounce. What that does mean is like, I'm not like super like convinced like, oh, this is like such a good buying opportunity. Like maybe it will be, but I don't know. I don't really care for it, guys. So yeah, can you please check 3-day RSI and XRP Ethereum showing bearish divergence? No. I'm sure it is showing a bearish divergence, but when you got a chart like that isn't, it doesn't act the same way as the other charts. It's hard to like say that this is going to be like on the high time frame, sure, but like on this time frame, well, this is a daily, like this is a bullish RSI. But when you have divergences that keep failing and price just keeps going higher, that's that 20% of the time where the bearish divergence doesn't work out. The 3-day chart, similar concept. This is actually one of those times, and I could probably talk about this for like 20 minutes because RSI used to be like my favorite indicator, and I used it very, very, very good. Like this right in here is now like a bull flag on the RSI. We've had so many times for this to actually break itself, and sure, it could still play out, but you'd have to wait for the uptrend to break. So if that RSI does keep rolling over and can't make a new high, we can't confirm that until we're back under here. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Are you bullish on any other coins besides XRP? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm bullish on other coins. If Bitcoin regains 90K and the bull market's back on, absolutely. I mean, many coins will probably pop pretty hard. But to be honest, I haven't spent any time recently looking at any other altcoins because I just don't care for them right now. I don't care to pick the perfect bottom. If I see the market turn bullish and we have Bitcoin back above 90K, we have the printers on, we have lower rates, I'm glad to step in and grab that meat in the middle on the altcoins. I don't need to get involved right now. That's just my approach, guys. It's just my approach because most of these altcoins have been decimated. I don't care to, try to catch the perfect bottom on those. At this finish, sounds scary to think about. Yeah, I mean, it could be finished for many years. Absolutely. You and BCB are the GOATs. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. But if it managed to go back all-time high, sound crazy for XRP. I'm not sure what you're asking there. Might have to bid Ethereum if it gets any lower, even if it's just a swing trade for a quick profit. Yeah, that's a good approach, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm pretty convinced, actually, there's going to be a good swing trade on Ethereum. But as for buying Ethereum and holding it for years, nah, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in maybe a 40-50% move and then, taking profit. So yeah, guys, throw in any other last questions. I'll be wrapping up here shortly. Thought it was a pretty good stream, though, for, the first stream here in a month. Hopefully I shared a lot of good insights and, helped you guys navigate the market a little bit more because confusing time. Everyone thinks they're an expert. Everyone thinks they're an expert on tariffs, this, that, the other. But guys, this is a confusing time. Like, it really is. It's a confusing time. So don't feel bad. But yeah, so feel free to throw in any other questions. We're gonna finish off here with the XRP order books, and if I don't think of anything else that I wanted to cover, start off here with Coinbase, and let's go to Binance here. Okay. All right. So if you guys join our space Wednesday night with X-Force, sure you guys know who X-Force Global is. Great Elliott Wave theory analyst. Even though I'm not big on Elliott Wave, he's got some really good thesis. And we started doing like a space every I think 2 days a week. So definitely check that out. Check that out if you guys haven't. But essentially, I spent like 15 minutes talking about these order books because the order books are the king of everything, guys. That they really, really are the king of everything. And you know what I shared here on these order books was the amount of people that want, you know, the amount of people that want to buy XRP here on Coinbase is crazy. Absolutely crazy here, guys. So take a look here what I mean. So you see all of these orders down here. See all these orders down here? 26 million. Right down here we had 26 million orders. Well, if you include that, but if we just go below price, look at that. From that low on. So let me explain this in the best possible way. Once we hit that 160 last week, or what was this, April 7th, so earlier this week, look at what happened with the orders. See this line that went crazy, went from 7 million to 26 million? Guys, 20 million XRP of passive buyers stepped in right after we hit that 160. That is a mega amount of orders for Coinbase. I mean, a mega amount. What that told me was that Americans are bullish on XRP. Americans are really bullish on XRP. Because if we didn't see any of these orders down here, if the order book looked like this, you see how that was a pretty empty order book, and that's why we sliced right through? If that's how we looked when we were coming down here the other day, I would have been really scared. But I wasn't too scared because of all these orders, and I know how these orders work, and I know after being down 15 to 20%, you need an incredible amount of selling pressure to slice through those orders. And that's exactly what we saw. So the order books here on Coinbase are so bullish for XRP. It's crazy. It really is crazy. I've been looking at these order books now since November, and I think we had even more orders than down here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's only 15 million down there. And I think anywhere over here, I don't think we had this much either. We got up to 17 million, right? Look at this. We get up to 23 million if we go down to like 140, right? And that's what the skew was showing us here. So if I go to the skew, it was a 50% skew. Yeah, look at this 50% skew here. Look at that, guys. The skew within 50% of the price hit 32 million. That broke our all-time high by like, our all-time high before that was 16. It almost doubled our previous all-time high. You see how that spikes so much right there on that bottom? Right there. We had all these orders just pop right in right here. About 11 million orders. Guys, there was some serious support on XRP for Coinbase. A serious amount of support. Like, an incredible amount of support. And that's why I'm pretty convinced that even if we do get that next leg down, which as of right now, I don't think it's happening in the short term. If it's going to happen, it'd probably have to be in a week or two. If we do get that next leg down on Bitcoin, down to 70K, I am very convinced, as long as these orders stay here, XRP will not go below 150. Because if it does, that would be a really, really warning sign. And I just don't see it. With this many orders here on Coinbase directly, guys, this would 100% support price. So the whole thesis of this all is that Coinbase is really bullish on XRP. And not Coinbase, the exchange, the people that use it, which are probably going to be Americans. They are really, really bullish on XRP. And these order books here really confirm that. So up until yesterday, this was completely clear. We did have some orders pop in. We got about 1 million, which is absolutely nothing, compared to 16 million. So XRP is clear to go back to 250 on Coinbase. First target is 220, just like I said on the charts. That's our first target. Above 220, we break all of this levels right there. We break that, right? 250 is next. 240 to 250 is next. But as of right now, you guys can just visually see, hopefully your screens can show it. Look at how many people want to buy XRP. Look at how many people want to sell it. Not many. Not many want to passively sell it. A lot of people want to passively buy it. So that's a bullish setup there on the XRP chart for Coinbase. And then as for Binance here, pretty similar. Not as good, but pretty similar. We still have a nice bullish order book skew here, especially compared to like the whole time we were up here. You see how negative this skew was up here, guys? Look at this. You see all this. We were ranging between 40 to 7 million XRP more wanting to be sold. And then here, anytime that we flash this bullish skew, price moves higher usually. See, bullish skew, price moves higher. Bullish skew, price moves higher. And then right here, there was just so much selling pressure that it didn't trigger yet because it's sometimes delayed. But you see how when we spiked up really big right here, that was that low, and we've moved higher since. So the concept here on XRP is that we still have about 10 million XRP down to 150. They're not as bullish as Coinbase, but it's not alarmingly bearish. It's definitely still more bullish than bearish. And we just have some orders to take out, about 3 million, which is really not too much. 3 million, we could go back up to our 250, 240. So my consensus, Coinbase order book, really bullish. Binance order book, slightly leaning towards bullish. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. And I'll, of course, keep updating if these change, but that's really all I got. Really all I got for that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. See if you guys have any other questions. Could you check out USDT.D? Yeah, I'll take a look at that real quick. We'll take a look at that. Yeah, cool stream. Thanks for Mooncake for sharing it. Well, thank you, Mooncake, for sharing it. Are you on Twitter? Yeah, TraderView 2. You could look it up. So USDT dominance. Funny, the last time I did an analysis on it was right here. And that was when we were breaking out. This was like the Bitcoin chart when we were breaking out. And that's the thing. Let me clean up this chart a bit. See, that's the problem here. This kind of is just like a Bitcoin chart, just in a different manner. But if we clean this all up here, I mean, I think it's pretty simple to say that, like, we're at the level where we should expect a rejection. And it's the same concept here with Bitcoin. So you see this perfect uptrend. See how we're like close to breaking that, right? Same thing here on Bitcoin. Got that perfect downtrend right there. See that perfect downtrend? And if we go back to USDT.D, perfect uptrend. So honestly, guys, like I look at this a little bit, but it's really just Bitcoin. Like, look at this. Look at this compared to this. Or wait. Oh, no, sorry. That's inverse now, but look at that. Put that in your mind. And then look at that. It's like the exact same chart on short time frames. So, it's telling me the same thing that the Bitcoin's telling me is we got to hold this level. Because if not, the whole bull market structure that we've created breaks. That whole bull market structure totally breaks. And we had a nice rejection there. I mean, that's a good engulfing candle. So yeah, adding all to my thesis, guys, that a low is in or a little bit lower. And that's it. Anything below that, we got a lot more questions on our hands. And I'm very under the impression that these lows will hold, at least in the near-term future. I don't think we should breach those lows in the next week or two, or else we got some serious problems in our hands. So yeah, well, thank you, guys. Do you mind showing your order book skew settings? Yeah, it's really just it just changes, to be honest. It just changes. Like, usually I'm using a 10% skew, but when I'm trying to look on a bigger time frame, I'll use like a 25 to 50% skew, and then I just shut off these other ones if I'm not doing some crazy analysis. Because this just allows me to see the skews within different price ranges. So this is within 3% of price, 5%, and then 50 I have right now. So yeah, well, thank you, guys. I appreciate everyone joining. Let me know if you guys have any of your last questions. Throw them in. And yeah, hopefully we got, hopefully we get some revival the next week or two. Charts are saying that it should happen here pretty soon if we just get a little bit higher. Like a little bit higher here on XRP breaks that downtrend. A little bit higher on Bitcoin breaks that downtrend. And, we could expect some revival. See, we got a pretty nice downtrend there as well. Could expect some revival. The last thing I'll cover here is the XRP. Let's look at XRP's volume profile real quick. Clean up this chart. I got too many XRP charts with like VWAPs everywhere. See these VWAPs here. Remember, price becomes free over this. It's been our line in the sand ever since. So still, 240, 250. We are back in action, guys. We are back in action. Back in action. No, so the last thing I wanted to check here was this. See the volume profile, so we see if we can confirm. Actually, I'll use this real quick. Okay, so yeah, that confirms what I was thinking here. 250 to 220 is that level. Yeah. So 250 to 220, we go right to 240 to 250. Above 250, look for new highs. We're back in action. We are back in action. If XRP gets back to 250, guys, after what it just did, it is very bullish. It is very, very bullish. So yeah, that's really all we could look at right here. Let me just look at the volume profile one more time. So yeah, point of control sits right about 220. So that's really the level. But this is looking primed here. I'm really hoping over the weekend we get a push to 220. I think that would be great. Yeah, I think that would be really good. We want to see that. We really want to see a push to 220 this weekend. Because if not, the chart stops acting like I think it should. And that doesn't mean we're back. I would expect we can try it here, maybe something like that, and then just a push and then range out more. That would be the best scenario. So, all right, guys, I keep going on and on, about an hour and 30-minute stream here. I'm sure you guys enjoyed it, though. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out, and feel free to subscribe. I'll be back to doing these once a week because I know you guys enjoy them, or I hope you do. Hope you guys enjoy them and get some value from them. You think we get a cut in May? I think we should get a cut in May. If we don't, Powell is behind. He's really behind at that point. So, yeah, I do think we should. You mentor people? No, I do not. No. Still, potentially launching some more education over the next few months, for people that want to really learn more about how I do things. But as of right now, no. BCB is not the GOAT. I will say, blockchain backer, he's very good at sharing analysis. He is very good at creating thesis. He is very good at explaining things. He really does have a talent of finding really cool fractals and comparisons. So yeah, he does a good job on that. But he definitely isn't always right. Like none of us are right. But a lot of the times I don't fully agree with his approach. But that doesn't undercut him. He's a very, very, very good analyst. And I think he provides very good data and has a good opinion. Well, yeah, thank you guys. XXRP, I'm not sure what that is. Is that new leveraged ETF? XXRP, it is. Uh-oh. Let's take a look at it. Oh, wow. It's crazy. That's pretty cool. All right, well, thank you guys. Thanks again for joining. I'm sure you guys will catch me on X. I'll be back next week with the stream. And as usual, have a great weekend. Well, let's hope we get a push to 215, 220. That'll be really good for XRP. Let's hope Bitcoin can get a push to like 85, 86. That'll be a good sign that a downtrend has broken, at least in the short term. So thanks again, guys. Enjoy your weekend, and we will chat soon.